easier on myself, making mistakes. And it's been very powerful for me to take that to my children and say, you know what, when I do things that are not right towards them, I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. I don't have a problem apologizing. And I'm just like, well, daddy's learning as well. I'm learning.
Yes.
Make mistakes and I'm learning. And so I keep repeating that. I do that on purpose because I want them to realize that I'm not perfect. I'm not.
Yes.
Because the worst thing to me that you can do is to make your children believe that you're superhuman.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? Because a lot of people think different
Yeah.
about this. But
Yeah.
I get,
Yeah. I totally agree because I try to show my kids how to show emotion, and sometimes I'm raging and I'm like, fuck, what did I do? And then like, hey kids, I'm sorry, it's not your fault, but it's hard for me to apologize in these moments because I feel ashamed about my behavior.
right.
And my son, especially my son, is triggering me because he is very special when it's about communication. He's not very open to talk, and I'm like, come on, he is like me, like a little boy. How can I help him to express his emotions? And so I'm glad that his mother has a better connection to him. I'm more like with my daughter. My daughter is like the little one, and she's very straight in her conversation. She tells you when she doesn't like you, and that for me is very important, that they express what they want, because I was taught by my parents, you don't have to say what you want. It's like, can I want this? No, it's like, can I have this, please? And for me, it's like, it's my will, so I can express I want this. It makes sense how they say I want something, especially when you're in a grocery. They say, I want candy. I'm like, okay, you get candy. When they say, I want candy, I'm like, no way.
Right,
Just try to be in.
right, right.
Yes.
Right. That's very, very powerful right there, you know, to allow them to share and express their wants, because that's all part of that emotion, you know, expressing emotion conversation. So yeah, that's very key. And I think there's something similar that I've noticed with my children. This is turning into like a parenting thing. This is why I love these conversations, because they take us anywhere, right? So like
Yes.
with my kids, it's this thing where, you know, whenever they used to cry or be upset, I'll be like, okay, no, we're not doing this, we're not doing this. And then I saw something online, I think it was a few years ago, and they said, oh, you know, when you tell your children to stop crying and to suck it up or whatever else, it's doing more damage, because in the way you're kind of shutting down that emotional communication. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm a teacher. I pride myself on being like a pedagogue, like understanding things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that, am I? And so that completely changed the way that I viewed things. And as triggering as it is, I've tried to let them vent, you know, because that's what it is, they're venting, right? So I've tried to let them just get on with it, you know, shout and holler. Obviously, there's a limit that I can take now, you know.
Yes.
But, you know, I understood that that was an important part of expression and, you know, your emotional communication. You know, so what you're saying there is very similar to that. It's not easy, because that's not how we were brought up, is it? I mean,
Yep.
I don't know about you, but if you started hollering and shouting, like, yeah, you know, it's like, you know, shut up, you know, you know, you'd be silenced pretty quick, you know. So this is not something that we grew up with, so it's quite difficult. But I think this is the beauty of, like, you know, reframing and rehabilitating a generation, and also the different things, you know, putting in question the things that we were taught and how we were raised. It wasn't wrong, it was for its time, but we're in a different time, you know, and that's the way that I see it. I'm not demonizing what people have done before. I would never do that, because they did what they did with what they had. You know, like you said, your dad did the best with what he had. It's the same thing. I think we need to all be mature enough to look at back then and just be like, okay, yeah, okay, they did some things sometimes that were very questionable, or in the words of today, you know, the police will come and take a lot of parents. Like, you know, if you want to look at it like that, that was then. That was then, and we need to pay a sort of reverence to that, in a sense. You know, that's kind of what my thoughts are on that.
Yes.
So,
I have one moment with my son. He was in a total rage mode, and he was like shocked and freezed, and I'm like, what's going on? And I went to his room and I said, okay, now let it out. Just say everything you want to say. You have the safe space here in your room. Just say what you think about this other boy, and then let it go. And it hurt because he started to kickbox the pillow I took, and he was like, oh, I'm so angry, I'm so angry. And I felt his release. And after his release, he was so soft and was like, damn, this is something I wanted to have as a child.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
support,
Yeah.
to be in a rage mode and to have the space to do this, because in the past it's like, oh, these children should be quiet. And yeah, as you say, but it's hard work. It's hard work
It
to
is
let your children feel their emotions, because
dealing
sometimes
with
I'm
that
exhausted as well.
outburst.